My name's Doug Shank. I'm one of the co-owners of Free Bowl of Soup, and also a longtime CYC Portland board member and ex-PowerPoint junkie. So I get to do this kind of stuff. We're gonna spend more time on this slide than you'd think. We'll get some more introductions in a bit, but it's getting more and more crowded on this for logos of all the folks that are making this happen. And it wouldn't be happening without the support of all of them, particularly Schooner Creek Boatworks. This is their 8th year as our title sponsor. They're really the backbone of enough financial funding to make the race happen. And then all the rest of these folks are either partners or their funding, helps us put on the race at the level we do. Obviously, the entry fees are a big deal as well. We appreciate y'all paying those, but it does, it's a pretty big operation to pull this whole thing off. It wouldn't be possible without obviously the racers, but definitely the sponsors. So Schooner Creek Boatworks, shout out to them. Personally, we brought our boat up a couple years ago from Acapulco, and they pulled out all the stops to get our boat ready to race in essentially like a week and a half. Put the keel back on, put the rudder back on, deal with a whole bunch of stuff. They were amazing. So they've been amazing to the race as well. Also, as we go up to the top, Corinthian Yacht Club of Portland, the organizing authority for this race. But you also see on all the slides here, Portland Yacht Club. And so a couple things. One, thanks Portland Yacht Club for having us here. But more exciting is Portland Yacht Club is slowly transitioning into becoming the owner of the offshore race. So maybe next year, but probably by the year after that, this will be the Portland Yacht Club, Schooner Creek Boatworks, Pacific Northwest Offshore. So it's great for the race to have it kind of established in a place like this, and really give us more credibility, give us everything you'd expect in a race like this to be backed by a yacht club like this. And they're open for drinks and breakfast, anything you need. So knock yourself out. Don't ring the bell though, because that means I'm not sure what was ringing over there, but you ring that bell, that means you're buying drinks for everybody. Another exciting ad. So Gosling's Rum is now a platinum sponsor of our race. So that's a huge deal. They've been trying to get more involved into the racing scene. They were at Anacortes Race Week last year and starting to do Swiftsure and now us. So look forward to future sessions and future things, the benefit of a sponsor like Gosling's being on board. The Port of Oahu, our host port down on this end, in Long Beach Peninsula, everybody there, and we'll get to that in a little bit, just been amazing supporters of the race. I'm going to do a quick round on this because I think they deserve the credit. Huser Firefighting Equipment, Eric and Amy's company. They've been sponsors for as long as they've had their company, going on 5 or 6 years now. 6, 7?
It'll be 7 then.
Wow, cool. Yeah. So if you have any fire needs, fire extinguishers, questions, whatever else, Eric's over here, can help you with that. Passion Yachts does ASA sailing lessons and have been a big supporter of the race. They'll usually have some gift certificates for us for people that want to get into their ASA certifications. Autoterm North America is a company that makes diesel boat heaters. We have one of these that we're anxiously wanting to get on our boat. Maybe we'll use tomorrow's sailing on Sunday as a way to do that. Second Wind Coaching, Jeff over here on our board, also our sponsor director. He does professional coaching. If you're in transition or just want to up your game, he's great at it. Columbia Crossings, they'll usually have some gift certificates for us. Have been a long time sponsor and supporter. Blue Heron Chiropractor is Dana's boat escape artist, the J105. Chiropractor speaks for itself. You need some work on your body versus your boat, he's your guy. Island Sailing has really stepped up to be more involved over the last couple of years, and their racing program is going gangbusters. They're also offering for crew or owners probably more for crew, but anybody that takes part in the offshore gets $500 off initiation if they want to join Island Sailing Club. North Sails has been our longtime sponsor of all our swag bags. Image 360, Jeff right here, Jeff Stong, and his wife's company, yep. To be clear. They've been doing all the graphics, really stepped up our game for signage and all the stuff they do. But side note, if you like, we redid our electrical panel, and they did panels for us. There's all sorts of stuff they can do, from graphics to signage to whatever you need. England Marine Industrial Supply. They are sponsors, but you're probably going to send more money their way than they're going to send our way, between here and Owako. McCuddy's, Marinas, and Sexton's Chandlery have been longtime sponsors. Thanks, Mark. And then I just added it today because I decided I'm going to come up with a package, but Top Mark Tech is my company. I started a year and a half ago doing marine electronics and installs. So, oh, okay. We have a new one. Teutonic Wines is just in. So Jeff, we're gonna have to add some logos here. But anybody entering the offshore, I'll spend an hour with you, hour and a half, go through a system assessment or check anything you want from your electronics or navigation side, and work you up something if you want, or just give you an ear and some measuring devices used for an hour from me. All right. That was a lot. And this is just slide one. Oh, and Lily, what's the name of your business again?
Sea Lily Boat Services.
Sea Lily Boat Services. So boat cleaning, you name it. Look at her. She's small and strong and smart. But the small and strong is really important for areas of the boat that I can't get to anymore. That need to be cleaned. Yeah. It's funny. Sam Hopper here. Just a little call out. I'm going to call him out. He's been sailing us with us since before he was born, literally. And when he was little, that was awesome. But now Sam's all big and grown up, and he doesn't fit in the spots that he used to anymore either. I'm not sure why I went there. All right. Let's see. Have my fancy laser pointer. It's not going to work for me. So real quick, I mentioned I'm Doug Shank. Eric Hopper, Craig Garrison, and Jeff Stong. If you guys can raise your hands again, they're here kind of sponsoring this, helping us put this presentation on. This is free bowl of soup. We're looking forward to our 12th offshore, third with this boat. I have an asterisk there because we did the Oregon inshore one year when we lost our prop on the way to Astoria and took the trailer up I-5. Unfortunately, they didn't let us keep the tracker on because we went all the way to Victoria about the same time everybody else got there. So it would have been a fun race to watch. Quick hands, and we'll kind of, if Eric or somebody else online can look, but this should be, if you're sitting here, I would hope this first question, you're all familiar with the offshore race, right? All right. How many of you in the room have done an offshore? Most everybody. Not everybody though. Okay. How many of you are going to do your first offshore this year? Awesome. Cool. And who is just here because they think they might do it in the future? Oh, even better. All right. That's awesome. Thanks for coming. And who just thinks this was a PYC recruitment meeting and we've scammed you? Kind of is, but not fully. All right. So here's what we're going to do. And I'll try to make it quick. Feel free, though, this is more interaction, the better. If you have a question, I'll either postpone it if we're going to get to it, or definitely that's the goal of this, for you guys to get as many questions answered as you want. So we're going to do a little history of the race, why we do it, who does it, how to do it. Obviously, that's going to be brief, and then Q&A. A couple of our winners. Hopefully we'll convince the new Rage being built to join us when it's done. Little history. This is the 49th year of the race, which is pretty cool. So next year, it's going to be the 50th anniversary of the offshore race, which is going to be an awesome combination, particularly with all the changes we've done and bringing PYC into the mix. First destination, they actually went to Newport, in the 70s. They, 70s were a good time. They didn't know where they were going, I think, until they started. But they varied the course all over the place. In 1980 was the typical course, went to Victoria. In 20, we changed it to the Pacific Northwest Offshore because we moved to Alwaco, and then we promptly canceled it because of COVID. And then for 2 years, we finished in Port Angeles because we couldn't go to Canada, and they were great. So someday in the future, we may end up going back to Port Angeles just to mix it up because it actually worked out way better than we had hoped. But in 23, back to Victoria, and we made changes in 24. We moved it closer to Swiftsure based on feedback. And we think that worked out really well because you didn't have this big gap and have to pay for moorage if you're doing Swiftsure. It was a shorter time frame, and it kind of worked out well on all fronts. We did a virtual start and finish line. Actually, Eric Rimkus, our pro, had to get that, went in and got approval from sailing, the International Sailing Organization, to approve that this had never really been done to do a fully virtual race. So the start lane was virtual. Finish lines had been done before, but we were the first race of the scale to use virtual starts and finish. ORC, which we'll talk about, kind of went from 0 to 100. And then our first multi-hulls. And yeah, question.
What does that mean, virtual start?
We'll talk to it a little bit. So there's it's all on your chart plotter and electronics. There's no boat involved.
No committee though.
No committee boats, and nothing to see visually. So it's kind of that part's not so great, but in terms of where we're starting and the logistics of it all, it works out really well. And then in 25, Portland Yacht Club as the co-presenter, moving to the full presenter, which is awesome. And then in looking at the requirements of this race compared to where it goes, we're actually moving to coastal requirements, safety requirements. So we were full-blown offshore safety requirements, the same as like a Pacific Cup. And you're never more than 50 miles offshore in this race. If you are, you're pulling a really interesting approach to the race. So we'll talk to that in a little bit, but that means the biggest one to that is life rafts aren't required. They're highly recommended. So that we think that may open up for some boats that think that that's a right option for them. Cool. Why do it? Most of you have already gotten past this stage, but for the folks that thinking of doing it, it really is a unique international offshore race. It starts in the US, ends in Canada. We'll talk a little bit about that because that's a big deal. It's a great feeder to go up north. We usually leave our boat up there till July, and this is the way we go north. And quite a bit of the cruising class, that's a good opportunity for them. Get their boat north, do it with a fleet, do it with a tracker on them, do it with a bunch of people looking out for them. So if you have cruising friends, encourage them. It's a little early in the year for a lot of them, but it's a good time to go up the coast and go up as a group. It's a challenge. It's an adventure. You make new friends. There's parties, champagne, and trophies. That's really why we do it, right? For all the accolades. And this is a quote I use from my younger daughter. It was a skiing day. Basically, one of my mantras. It's always easier not to do something, right? If you can all sit on your couch and do something else, but you've chosen to do an adventure like this. Who does it? You have to be at least 24 feet. And as you can see, that hasn't stopped folks. That's our 24-footer from, I think 23, they did that. Everything for pure racing boats to pure cruising. Is Souffle here? Souffle guys are here. Oh, they'll have I think they have a cooking contest up the coast about who creates the best meal during their trip up north. That's the PHRF is, we'll talk to that a little bit. I need to update the slide, but PHRF is only in the cruising class at this point. We're 100% ORC, and we'll talk to that in a little bit. And our goal is to 20 to 25. Obviously we'd love to have 30 boats in the race, and we think we're gonna keep growing with some of the changes and good things that are going on with it. What are we up to as of now? I think 14 are entered. Yeah. So, and a lot of boats we know are doing it aren't in there yet. All right. ORC, we'll spend some time on this, and we actually have Chris Tutmark from US Sailing is on the Zoom, ready to answer any questions if we want to spend a little more time on ORC. But ORC is the Offshore Racing Congress. This is a measurement system and methodology that it was big, very big worldwide, but has been growing rapidly in the US. It's really started at kind of the top level of race boats. But it's seeing, I was looking through their annual report, and the US is in the top 5 of the countries that are growing with the number of boats that are getting ORC certificates. Last year, we said, hey, we're going to do this because a lot of the boats had ORC certificates, the A-class boats typically, and amazingly, and we made Chris lose some more hair based on this. We got everybody into ORC the night before the race. We had one boat left that hadn't gotten their ORC certificate and was going to probably have to drop back to the cruising class, but Chris helped pull out the stops and get them through. So this year, we definitely don't want to. That's not the timeline. We'll talk about that a little bit. We want to, give a long runway for everybody to get their boats set up. There's we're not going to spend a ton of time on ORC, but we have a link here where you can learn more, and their websites and their resources are great. Chris is great. Chris's office, the offshore office, a really great team to work with. There's international certificate is the highest level of certificate that requires your boat actually to be fully measured and do in the water flotation tests. That's not required for this race. We are using the club certificate, and the club is a much easier step to get into. Basically, if you have a standard or unmodified boat, you can get that fairly easily. You'll have to have your sails measured or the info from a sail measurer that's can say, yeah, these are the measurements of the sails. It's qualified to do that. Actually, Denny, who's online, Eric and I are measurers. So we're the ORC measurers for Portland. And there's 2 up in Seattle now as well. Back in last February, they added a bunch of measures around the US, and adding 5 to the Pacific Northwest was great. So sails measured, a lot of it is like you have to do the serious assessment of your boat. Like, what are you, how much crew are you going to actually have? What items are you carrying or not carrying from there's a new one about the, if you have a mast ram, there's just certain things. If you're classified as a cruiser racer, do you actually have a table? Do you have the things that make you a cruiser racer boat as opposed to being defined as a racer? So working through that is all part of the process of getting the certificate. And if it comes down to getting in the water measurements, we can arrange to have that done as well. Usually that will result in a little bit better. It could result in a little bit better rating if, because they're using the model of something that doesn't know if your boat's unique. And if you've added a bunch of stuff, like I know we did Yugo last year, and that had, all sorts of great cruising gear on it. Definitely different than the other J120s in the race, and it gave them a more fair rating. Go ahead.
You may want to mention what's happening a week from today, the seminar you're giving on info to ORC.
Oh, yeah. Next week is another one of these talks, and we're going to do a deeper dive on ORC. Part of the discussion is talking about how we're going to use it more locally and look at growing that, but also we can spend time going in deeper on some stuff as well. I covered us as the measures. New this year, and this is one of the examples of the benefit of ORC is it's a very big worldwide organization that is very focused on numbers and not just here's your rating, not to throw stones, but it's very scientific how they come up with the ratings for your boat, and it's based on their velocity prediction profile. They actually do the whole analysis of your boat and have models for that and look at that to create the rating, and that create a rating in different wind strengths and different wind speeds NC State's a whole 9 yards. So your certificate at the end of this is a pretty amazing package that comes with essentially stuff you used to do on performance boats to get like your polars. Like what is the boat is expected to sail at different breezes, at different angles. So the process of getting your certificate, you'll actually end up with that. You can also play around with things if you want to get really nerdy. And you can run test certificates and say, what if I got rid of my Genoa and just went with non-overlapping head sails? What would that do with my rating? So you can play around with it as well. So in 25, they updated it. So they're continually trying to look for where do we think it's not accurate and make changes to that. They did some downwind sail aspects and general improvement in accuracy overall. And they also added 4 knots of true wind speed. So it goes from 4 to 24 knots, the profile for your boat. And now on your certificate, it has a profile of your boat above and below the water. That's largely to help with people identifying you and seeing the boat and going, oh, that's the one with the funky keel or the one with the, extra tall rig. And the requirements, if you're a cruiser racer, are clearly spelled out on the certificate. Any adjustable mast foots must be declared or removed. And now those fancy powered winch handles, you have to check the box that you have a powered boat, powered systems on the boat. So if you're carrying those, you have to be honest about it or get them off if you're going to not use them for racing. Yeah.
Is there a fee for this?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's based on length, and it's a little more than PHRF. And you can only carry one set of certificates at a time, which are, your main certificate, a double-handed, and if you have a version without flying sails, without spinnakers. So, but if you want to make significant changes to your boat and get an updated certificate, you can do that, and it's half the original price of the beginning certificate. Some of the big boats do that. In fact, Riva is probably a great example. It's got water ballast. Racing around the cans here or up at race week, you're not going to use water ballast and you take a big rating hit for it, but for offshore you would. So for them, getting a certificate with water ballast to do offshore and then asking for a new one where they don't use water ballast for their buoy racing is a perfect example of the system being able to handle that very easily.
There's also a fee for the measurement.
Yeah.
You gotta pay the measurement for their time to measure the sails.
Yeah. So yeah, not free, but worth the price of entry. It's a really great system. One of the things on the 4 knots, and we did this last year, is that they actually looked at the race and picked the ratings based on the conditions. So it's not just, hey, here's the time on time, regardless of what happens. If it's a downwind race, they'll use a set. If it ends up being largely downwind, they'll use the set of numbers for that conditions, which would be more fair to what we actually saw. So the whole idea is that how did you race your known entity against other people with known entities? Not, hey, I bought the right boat for this race because it's downwind and I have a rating that's great for downwind. No, you'd have to still perform to your capabilities. This is the link here to get started. Also, we'll share our contact info. Eric, myself, if you have any questions about this. We also have Chris on. Chris, how'd I do?
All good. Yeah. And I mean, I haven't run any certs yet. We've done about 200 test certs already for the season. But we haven't issued any certs. So I don't have an example to show all the various scoring options. But if you have a copy of your cert from last year, the 24 cert, they're all pretty similar.
Yeah, at the end, I'll bring that up after I'm done. I can bring that up.
Because it's pretty useful for all sorts of races to see the scoring options that are available to accurately score an event.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Chris.
So just a quick add. So we've been using ORC on the river since last year. And for a few of the races, we've used ORC ratings to basically estimate the finish times of boats to understand how long the race should be. And what is interesting is it's usually within a minute or a minute and a half for an hour and a half race for the boats we pick. And it basically allows us to set a really good course. But it's an amazing tool.
Awesome. I'll be at the end. I won't try to slow myself down, but I'll bring up some certificates to show you guys. It is fun because it's very transparent. That's actually another good bullet. You can go look at any boat certificate and the details of it to see, what is it they're doing, how is it, what are their ratings, what are they expected to be doing. So it's very transparent. The other thing about the wind speed, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but they have introduced this year in 25. They've done it for a couple regattas where they actually use grid data, actual data to do the scoring. And so instead of scoring you against a medium heavy downwind or one of these tabled items, they actually take the whole grid file for the area during the race and map that against your polars and say, how did you guys do in the conditions that you had presented to you, as opposed to this kind of ballpark area. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. Head pick now. J109 Apex. What's up?
So I noticed most of them go through the end of the year. Then some of them go through longer.
Yeah, they're yearly certificates, so you have to renew for this year. They just opened up for 2025. So you can do your 2025 renewal that started now.
There's some that expire like at later times.
Yeah, that's a good question, Chris. I don't know that if you got it late last year, does your certificate go through late this year, or do you have to get one for 25? I think you have to get one for 25.
It's for 25. We've got a few events that are presently going on in Florida where we've extended the expiration so that they can do an entire season with one certificate. But the rule changes every year as was mentioned. So we want to make sure. So basically for most events starting March 1, they'll all be into 2025 certificates. So like Center Sound Series in Seattle is one of the first events that we've got on our calendar. We've got the fleet in San Diego has actually changed over to ORC this year. So there's going to be about 150 additional boats coming into ORC from that region. And they've got an event the second weekend of March. So we've got two events on the West Coast that'll be our kickoff 2025 events that we're cranking out certs to get everybody covered.
Cool. Yeah, that's based on that. Obviously, yeah, so if you have one now, you'll need to get it renewed for offshore. Probably have some discussions about because we're kind of the sailing on Sunday stuff is kind of rolled through. That'll probably end up. I mean, we're not moving to 25. We'll be done probably before everybody gets their 25 certificates. So, yeah. So there were some people that got it late last year. Sorry, I mean that was the cost of entry of getting into the program, and you have to do it again this spring. Any more questions on ORC? It's worth diving into. I actually had the opportunity to go back to Newport and do the ORC Worlds as a measure, and it's pretty cool to see how well the system works and how very intense it is on making sure that boats are meeting what they say they are and what they're carrying and doing. So a very fair and good system. All right. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you joining us too. Let's talk about the course. So we start, we're going to get into the virtual stuff, but most people are very familiar with this. We start at the Columbia River near Buoy 2. We go around Dunce Rock Buoy, which is now a virtual buoy. There's not a real buoy there either. So be aware of that. We'll talk about it. You go through or around Race Rocks. That's your dealer's choice. It's not a mark, but you clearly can't go inside of Race Rocks because that's land. So you got to clear the corner somehow. And the finish line used to be on the breakwater in Victoria, right where all the cruise ships back out, kind of not ideal. So we've got a virtual finish that has moved that out and out of the traffic lanes a little bit, which we'll talk about. 193 nautical miles. So it's a real deal race. A couple comparisons there for reference. And a lot of the big races, we'll talk about that too. And the why, I actually didn't cover that. I mean, we are a qualifier for the bigger races. So if you got a Trans Pac or a Pac Cup or a Vic Maui or even the Van Isle 360 requires a qualifying race or something showing that you can do this. And this race definitely qualifies for that. Typical weather, you can't even say this anymore. I think this might be one of the areas where global warming is helping us. We've had more downwind races than we could ever count the last few years. And it just seems to be, it used to always be northwest 8 to 15 knots, speed up the coast, where you say, I'm never going to do this again. I say it every year. I still do. And then you round the corner, usually downwind, warms up. You start talking about what you're going to do different next year when you do it again. But typical is definitely not the case anymore. It's been all over the place. Cold, it's usually cold. That I guess is consistent. Sometimes it's a less cold. But one of my ideas early on was I realized one of the most expensive things I owned when I started doing this race 20 some years ago was my foul weather gear. And I figured if I brought a brand new set on the boat halfway up the coast in the middle of the night, I could probably sell it for whatever I wanted to somebody that brought their cheap West Marine gear. So we kind of came up with this. It's kind of an 11-course meal. You're kind of at the pre-dinner function here. But the first leg, obviously, you got to get to Oahu. You got to get to the start. Oahu is not a leg of the course, but where we're going to all be come a couple days before the start to a week before the start. The community has gone nuts on this. It's couldn't have been a better move for the race. Astoria really, we don't carry 5,000 people on our boat and come in and flood the town. Astoria didn't really care that much about us. They didn't care about dredging, kind of throwing Astoria under the bus, but that's fair. I mean, you couldn't get in the marinas. They were too shallow. And this move was really just like, what do we do? And then it turned out was the best thing we could have done because the Waco, Long Beach Peninsula, they just all came out for it. It's good timing for them because it's early in the season, so they haven't quite filled up with other folks yet. And it's a great marina, and it's a lot closer to the start, which is kind of a nice bonus. Any questions on Oahu? One piece, we'll probably be pretty soon to getting able to sign up for your registration for staying in Oahu for your boat. And there's info on the website about resources and other stuff about places to stay if you're going to get a hotel. And also there is a haul out option in Oahu. If for some reason something happens and or you just wanted to plan around that, they do have a haul out facility right there, actually. And a yard they can haul into where you're allowed to work on your boat. So something down the road I could see us doing is hauling out there before the race just to do a once over. All right. The start. So this is in the past. Coho Sally was our race committee boat. Now they are our spectator boat. So there's people crazy enough to go out off the Columbia River Bar in a little boat that's not even fishing and bobbing around, and it's amazing, and take pictures or just watch the thing. Coast Guard's usually out there with us. We definitely work in conjunction with them. But out on buoy 2, and we'll talk about the virtual start line, I think, next. Yeah. So this is in your, be clear, this presentation does not qualify as anything official. Got to go read your notice of race and sailing instructions. But we have a virtual half-mile start line that you can plug into your systems and then use that as the start of the race. Worked really well last year, except for one boat, which plugged one of these numbers on wrong and had their other mark way over here. We were all kind of confused why they started out over there all on their own. And luckily they figured it out and came back and restarted. So Any questions about the start line? Okay, cool. Called this the VMBV Bash leg of the course, up the coast to Umatilla Reef. Strong coastal currents. People sometimes don't realize quite how much current is out there and how it varies over inshore and offshore. So that combined with the wind direction and sea state is really where you're making big calls of, am I hugging the coast? Or am I going outside to get to fresh breeze, but fighting bigger sea state or bigger stuff out there. Very tactical and often painful portion of the race. Because often you can kind of make it right up the coast almost, but you're getting sucked in and then that tack out against the current or sideways to the current. You have this painful look on your track like you're going the wrong direction until you can tack back up towards the corner again. This is a picture of one of the tracker snapshots. It's really cool part of the whole system if you're not familiar with it, but all the boats carry YB trackers. And this is a big hit for people following along during the race and even for you to use during the race to see where everybody's at. I stole a lot of this actually. California girl, Tim Leslie. I stole a lot of this content from him, so I should give him credit. I think he named it. He had it as a 7-course meal. I added a couple courses, but pretty much he came up with these terms. The power trap, this leg from Umatilla Reef to Dunce Rock. Dunce Rock is also a virtual mark. We'll talk about that. This is where a lot of people win or lose the race for their class or overall is you get sucked in too much here. And often there's holes of wind in here and here. Did you try to cut the corner too much? Often a strategy, Time Bandit, the J120 was notorious for this, called it the Great Circle Route, where they would stay way away from all this, come way out here, and then we'd be sitting in here parked and we'd see them coming around us up here and like, dang it, they did it again. So yeah, very tactical thing, good area to look at really closely for not getting sucked in and getting parked. And then also, are you getting ready for the next leg? Are people getting rest? People able to sleep? Are you getting prepared for the run down the straits? There's a virtual mark for Dunce Rock. They actually have removed that buoy. I guess that's a tough place to live as a buoy, and it gave up too many times. This is a potential shortened course if it totally shuts down in the straits. So there's technically a line there. And there's some notorious holes before and after rounding that. And the big thing to be aware of is at this point, you're now entering an area with shipping traffic. So you can see this on your charts. It looks like a big roundabouts and freeways, and definitely the time that you need to check in and start keeping your eyes on all of that. Race to the rocks, from the corner to Sheringham and then through Race Rocks. Obviously, you're either going to have to stay out of the shipping lanes or cross them occasionally and or do it, this in a prudent manner as you can. Those things come out of nowhere and go surprisingly fast. There's a great, you guys want a story? Do I have enough time to tell a good, one little story. There was a boat, won't be named. It wasn't us, but we heard it on the radio. And so one thing is the radio, the VHF's your friend. You use it. They like to, commercial traffic likes to hear you. The Coast Guard is very happy to talk to you. So don't be like, I don't want to bother them. Be the opposite. And this example was around that. The boat hailed this container ship coming in and said, freighter such and such. This is the sailing boat, Riva. I'm going to say it was him, even though it wasn't. It wasn't. I don't think. And they go ahead, Riva, and like, well, we're hoping to cut in front of you here and go across the shipping lanes. And the skipper of the freighter was funny. He's like, well, first thing we're going to do is take hope out of this conversation. I'm going to slow down and you are going to pass in front of me across the shipping lanes, and then I will speed back up. So I thought that was awesome. We use that all the time. Yeah. All right. The toilet bowl, race rocks to the finish. This is it's in sight. This is often one of the most painful, very painful aspects of the course. If you happen to get here early and shut down in here and then watch the whole fleet just storming down the straights, catching up to you. Not that that's happened last year. But the other thing here is there's a lot of funky currents in here. We call it the toilet bowl because it tends to get this big circular current. It's very easy to just start rumlining it because I'm almost there. The Bloody Caesars are right there. They're just waiting for us to get off the boat and under the bar and have a drink. And you'll start going this way and you'll get sucked in over here and just watch everybody that was smart enough to kind of put a circular route in here, kind of go right around you. It's been so far sometimes where we've gone, all the way over here, well, off the side of the screen and drifted back across in this current with just trying to get enough to get up into the finish area. So race is definitely not over after you're done through race rocks. The other thing we didn't hit in race rocks is it's a funnel. So the wind increases dramatically, and calling the right ley line and having a sense of what sails you're going to have up. If it's blowing 15 to 20 in the straights, it's probably going to be 20 to 25 in the rocks for a little section. So, you don't want to say, hey, let's go change the kite right at the narrowest part of the rocks. Probably want to prep for that a little earlier. And then the final half mile to finish where it can really shut down. You have to be aware, keep your eyes open for commercial traffic coming in and out of Victoria as well. So that's a trade-off. As you go further out here, you're more into the commercial stuff, but that's where you want to be for current. Here's the virtual finish. It's outside of the inner harbor, so that was the big move. This used to be the finish line right about here. It's outside of the shipping lane, but you still need to be aware. And also note, if you did the race before, it's slightly different than last year's. So redo your marks in your chart plotter. We moved. We had it more magnetic this way, but having it on the same lat line makes it easier for if we do yellow brick calculations on your finish time. It's a lot easier not to have to do math of both lat and long. So yeah, make a note of that and document your finish time. So you're also required to take a picture of your chart plotter with you crossing the finish line in case some reason the yellow brick system doesn't work as well as you hoped. It hasn't been a problem, but suck the one time we finally have an issue if we didn't have a way to score everyone. So you're in Canada, eh? Now this is I think we're on course 10. Yeah, this might be 10 of the 11 or 11. Yeah, it's 10. You got to get through customs. We'll have a slide on that a little bit. You're entering another country. But the reward is you're in Victoria. There's champagne and hot towels. There's you're queued up for what's next, whether it's Swiftsure, cruising, whatever. One of the things that was really fun last year when we moved the starts closer together is that a lot of people stayed up on their boats between offshore and Swiftsure. And so there was a pretty healthy gathering of people that were just hanging out in Victoria for a week, which was a fun time. Talk about the records. The smallest to ever do it have been a handful of 24s. The largest was the CS Oriole, did it in the 80s. The fastest Icon, a custom 65-foot boat, did it in 16 hours in 2014. 2014 was what's that? Yeah, you're right. That's wrong. Yeah. Who did this presentation? You fact checking me? When did you come in here? You come here just to heckle me? Yeah, you're right. That race was insane. It was blowing stink downwind the whole way until you got to the corner, and then it clocked. So you would downwind all the way down the straights and carried all the way to the finish. We did it in a J105 in 21 hours, which we were 45 minutes off of Rage's old record with a J105. It was a very fast race. The only downside of that was explaining why you were still going to stay in Victoria. It was now Friday, And it's like, why aren't you coming home till Sunday? It's like, I'm not. Most races, Steve Rander and Tom Kelly have done more than they can count. Youngest racer, Piper Easton, who did it when she was 12. She's now a rock star on our boat. Well, she's a rock star, period, but she's on our boat as a rock star. Most overall wins. I had to update this because Bob Brunius on Time Bandit won again last year, so he's gotten up to the 5 number. And then Bill and Becky Huseby is Sting, and Blade Runner Santa Cruz 27 as a couple. And between Rainey and Rander on the old Rage Custom 70, won it 5 times. Overall winners. I'm not going to go through this, but long list of local sailing legends that you'll know. COVID won, and this is a weird boat named COVID-19. It won in 2020. This was unique. J111, Justin and Chris Wolf, folks know them. They're kind of off the chart, double-handed people. They were, and they continue to grow on that. And they won it overall double-handed, which is just kind of like a second slap to you. Yeah, Yachtswoman of the Year. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Good time to add your name to the list and make this slide even harder to create. So let's talk a little bit about timeline. So now we're here. What should you be doing? Register and prepare your boat. I mean, it's a massive effort to do this race. We're not trying to scare you away, but the sooner you start, the sooner you realize how much more you have left to do. Read the notice of race, go through that and understand what's going to be on your list. The safety requirements, that's where you need to be spending a lot of time right now, going through that list and going, do I have all these things? Am I set up for this? Have a earlier, instead of waiting till the final end to get inspected, talk to us about, can I meet with somebody for a little bit to kind of go through some questions and things I have, get kind of pre-inspected, as it were, so you're not waiting to try to do all that at the very end. 30% of your crew has to have done safety at sea. That's coming up the next couple weekends. They're full, but I think most of the people got the word on this early enough. But if you're looking forward to next year, the future, put safety at sea on your plan, sooner rather than later. It's good for 5 years, and it's a good idea in general.
Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Sorry. We are not sold out in Vancouver. We still have room in Vancouver. And so if people want to get in for this year, that would be Sunday, February 23rd. People would have to get on it immediately. But if they go to the Sailing Foundation website under Safety at Sea, again, they got to get on it this weekend because they'll have to do the pre-training. But I just want to get that word in there for the Vancouver class.
That's great. I'll be honest. I asked somebody who I won't name, Craig, and he said they were, because I was going to try to reach out to you to make sure, and he said no, they're all full. So,
yeah, Seattle is full, but Vancouver still has a few spots left. So,
yeah, awesome. Thank you, and thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you haven't done a safety at sea, it's worth the cost of entry for sure. It's even doing it multiple times. It's, I've learned stuff every time that I never thought of that or didn't think about that before. And they keep improving it too. So it's, if you did it 5 years ago, the new version is even better.
Yes, the damage control is entirely new, starting from last year, and we've got end grinders and flooding stations that actually flood and things. So it's a lot of fun. And I'll shut up.
No, actually, I meant to reach out to you. I'm glad you're here. And if there's anything else to add on the safety at sea.
No, just hop on it immediately because there is a mandatory online training that takes about 11 or 12 hours. And it's worthwhile, but people would have to do that before they can come in person. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great. Cool. I think that's on the top list. There's another page we'll get to in a second here. February 15th, we staggered entry prices this year. So if you're thinking to enter, do it before the 15th. Or it goes up $100 to entry. And there are refund dates that go the other way about how much we'll give back to you over time. So if you're thinking about it, you can still get out, I think, till March 15th. And then you start owing portions of it up to all of it. And then there's a separate tracker fee, but that's all. You'll see that on the website. It's all comes together. April 30th, the kickoff party here at Portland Yacht Club. It's also when we'll do the entry cutoff. So that's your last day to enter. May 10th and 14th. They've actually even created a thing called race days, where, you know, they're kind of making a deal about the boats are here and telling people go down to the docks, take tours. One year they made signs for each of the boats about who they were and what they were and how many races they've done, that kind of stuff. Final equipment inspections. And then Wednesday night is the skippers meeting and the pre-race gathering at the Salt. And then we start on Thursday, the 15th. When you finish is up to you, but if you're not there by Sunday, May 19th, then we're done with you. You're on your own. And you miss the barbecue. So sometime between that and the end, turn on your engine and come join us at the barbecue. Don't be this guy. I don't know if you guys noticed in this picture. Had a great shot. This is the act of him falling off the boat right there. So don't be that guy. Don't be left behind. Talked about info and registers, ways, next steps, way to keep in touch. And this deck will be available. We'll post it too, but we have a Facebook page. There's also a Google group. Just send an email to the race captain if you want to be part of that group, and you'll get lots of great messages from Denny about what's going on. And then we mentioned the timelines for refunds there. Any questions on that? Yeah.
Yeah, kickoff party, Gosling's is donating a bunch of rum for Dark and Stormy, so we'll be selling cocktails that will be a fundraiser for the Pink Boat Regatta, which is a women's breast cancer organization. They put on for a couple of regattas up in the Seattle area, and so they're our sponsor this year, or our fundraising sponsor for the sales of all the Gosling drinks at the kickoff party.
Awesome. Yeah.
So if you have questions about the safety equipment, et cetera, or any nuts and bolts type stuff, what's the best?
You can start with the race captain, or you can get Craig's contact info. He's leading the charge on inspections. Yeah. Right, Craig?
Yeah.
Throw you out there?
Myself and Eric.
Yeah.
I'll type our names. Soon.
Okay.
Cool. Oh, it's like you took off. Yeah. So Jeff had an idea to add some more info here. So I'm going to let him take it on for a second. I had some good ideas to add.
So my name is Jeff Stong. I'm the race captain at PYC. I've done offshore 1.25 tons because last year we had short shore. We broke our forestay in the middle of the night off of Grace Harbor. It was a little exciting. That kind of gets to safety equipment, inspections, things like that. If your boat has not done offshore before, or even if it has, things that you can't see are things you may want to figure out a way to get inspected. So our head stay underneath our head foil had some issues we did not realize. We had the rest of the rig inspected. After the failure, looking at it, the forestay failed in torsion at the top. Had we actually taken that thing down and looked at it, we probably would have caught it and been able to do that and do SwiftSure. So kind of lesson learned, check things, check, double check. If you haven't done the race before, there's a lot of prep. Make sure you go through the list early and often, over and over again, and check. You need to confirm dates. You also need to do things like figure out your battery life, and if you really have sufficient battery life to get through the race, or if you need to replace some of your cells, you need to do the work. When you think you're done, and you should try to do that really early, then I would probably get a hold of some of the inspectors and see if you can get a pre-inspection, because they will also give you suggestions. I strongly recommend the things they suggest you implement. The advice we got from Craig the first time we went through it was very valuable. And when we had the breakdown in the middle of the night, some of the things we heard from Craig actually allowed us to be very prepared for that, or at least as prepared as you can be for things sounding horrible in the middle of the night and breaking. So here, there's a lot of stuff you can buy. However, if this is the event you're doing and you're not doing anything else, you're not cruising, it's actually cheaper to rent, even a life raft. So if you look at the cost of research, it is cheaper to rent. And it's about $400 to get a life raft. You can get an EPIRB programmed to your boat for a month for $65, shipped to your house with a return postage box. It is the latest EPIRB. On our boat, all the crew also rent personal beacons, and they are all keyed to our boat through the MMSI, and they're a great company to work with. And if you rent it all at once, they cut down your return shipping, you get it all in one box. They know your event dates, and they actually give you a little bit of headroom on either end. When we had our event in the middle of the night that basically caused everything to be short, I was surprised, but basically Marine Safety Services, the life raft people, and OER, they gave us some refunds. So they actually credited us back. I did not expect that when they got their gear early. So they're great companies. They're awesome to work with. The only hassle on the life raft is they're in Seattle. So you got to drive up and get it before the event, and then you got to return it. But, you know, it's an excuse to go to Seattle and get up there and maybe go to fisheries and whatnot. In terms of government stuff.
Real quick comment on the top bullet. I capitalized this and crew items. So, you know, you're as the skipper responsible, your crew have all the right safety gear. Their PFDs, and the PFDs are in date. Their cylinders and all of the stuff is packed. Have they actually inflated it and left it in fully inflated overnight for 24 hours? You know, is it really going to work? That's not a requirement, but the dates are. And when you get to Waco and find out that your PFDs, you don't have the right tether to meet the requirements, you don't have the right PFDs, it's a lot harder to deal with that a day or two before the race than to check that really early with your crew and say, do you have the equipment I need you to have for the race?
Okay, just quickly, the right-hand side, government stuff. There's a bunch of documentation. You need to make sure it's all current. So this is things like basically your vessel safety check, your proof of insurance, your registration, your certificate of documentation if you're a documented vessel, and so on. Next one, you need to make sure your crew is able to enter Canada. So I race in a few other fleets, and in one of the One Design fleets I race in, we all drove up together, towing our Lightnings to go up to a race in Kitsilano. It turned out one of the guys' crews had a drunk driving deal in the States and was not able to go into Canada, and that skipper couldn't race. So you need to look at that. You need to make sure that your crew actually is able to be in Canada. Things that are legal here are not legal there, and things on your record will prevent you entry. You need to make sure you've got a passport. A real ID is not sufficient. Check in at the Canadian Customs dock before you go get your champagne and your hot towel. You really need to. You're tired, but you got to do it. Just a reminder here, it's illegal to take cannabis into Canada, and there's also limitations on how much alcohol you can bring in on your boat. So make sure you've checked those areas of your boat and you're not over the limit. That could be a problem.
Is that a bad sign, Jeff, that I had to add that limitation on alcohol?
Yeah. So in terms of heading home, couple things. There's a thing called DTOPS. I forget what it stands for, but you get a little sticker, kind of like an annual registration sticker. This is something you need to start now. So I just did mine a month ago for 2025, and they're having delays in fulfillment, and you need to get that done. You need to have that sticker. You also need to get the Roam app on your phone. This is how you check in. I had a surprise the first year I did this, and they asked me questions about other Portland boats that were coming back because they watch all of us. Because I said I was race captain and I would explain this when I got back, people weren't fined. There were boats that would have had fines in excess of $1,000 each. They had dropped anchor in Nia Bay without contacting basically customs, and they were very aware. So something to be aware of. You need to have that. And surprisingly, I had a long explanation from them after I got back about how it's supposed to work. Seems funny, we're in sailboats, we tack back and forth across the straits. I had a long explanation from them that no, you have intent to enter the US. When you leave Victoria, first time you cross that line, that's when you should contact us. It's like, we might let you go a tack or two, but we are watching you. I was very surprised. It's not what I expected. We went and anchored in Nia Bay, and we left Nia Bay, did not touch a dock or anything. And then we actually used the Rome app, and that's when I got chewed out. And it was pretty significant. And they asked about other boats they were watching come down that they knew stayed in Nia Bay as well. So I don't know what happened last year because we left early and we didn't get that far. We turned at Grace Harbor, but basically something to be aware
You
of.
can go to customs and check in with.
Yeah.
The Rome app means you don't have to take that detour.
Right.
It's a very nice option, but if you don't get around to doing it, you can still go to the customs. Or US customs.
Right, but they will basically Zoom with you when you do the Rome app. They'll want to see everyone on the boat. They'll want to look around the boat via their app video thing. It actually works pretty well. So any questions? Okay, and again, on the rental stuff, if you are thinking of doing that, I'd start getting your reservations in. They're great companies to work with. I wish Marine Safety Services had someone in Portland. If there are multiple people renting, we may be able to arrange some sort of shuttle service to get the rafts down and up instead of multiple people doing it. But anyway, thank you.
Cool. Thanks for pulling that together, Jim.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Craig.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to mention that I dropped the link in the chat for this call. The link to register for the Safety at Sea in Vancouver on Sunday, February 23rd.
Cool. Thank you. We'll send out to folks. We had a contact list too. We'll send out links and contact info and the recording for this. So if for some reason you want to go back, we'll also have the slides posted there that you can get to. Let's see. You guys want one more story?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that it was me that realized and added the limitation on alcohol that you can bring in. But it took, it took Jen to say, but it doesn't count if it's in your body. So clear on that. Oh. I'm gonna pretend this wasn't recording that. No, but before the CBP Rome, they had a system. What was that system called? It was like they had a precursor to it where you could check in without going to the customs dock. And we were actually the first boat, one of the first boats to use it. And we were the first boat to use it. And we're coming in and Eric makes the phone call. And they're like, you can kind of get a sense they're all scrambling, like, oh crap, somebody's actually doing this. And it was a big deal to not have to go to the customs dock coming back in up north. And so they said, okay, we got through it. We went through all the info, and they're like, finally like, but we have one more question. I need to get my manager and the team in here. And we're like, oh crap. So, something isn't good. We're going to have to go to the dock. And we wait, they come over and they're like, okay, so what we really want to know is what's up with the name of your boat. Because we've had you on this whiteboard at the very top of it for 2 months now. And every day everybody asks, has Free Bowl of Soup checked in yet? And nobody knows anything about. So it was like, I'm like, are we cleared to come in? They're like, oh yeah, you're good to go. But it's like kind of left us hanging there. It's pretty fun. And the other thing that's kind of scary, the customs don't assume they don't know what's going on, because it's always funny when we check in and they start asking if all of our crew is with us by name and they're spot on. It's like, how did you know that? So go, Kent.
Something not on the list is firearms too,
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a good ad. We should
and switch lids.
really? Okay. I think I'm feeling a little better about the fact that I had to bring up the alcohol and learned a little bit about you there too, Ken, maybe. there's some in the links. We'll send this out. Here's Jeff's boat, Tenacious, on there. Some videos, and then also the links to all the previous race trackers are still up there, so you can go rewatch the last 5 years. And it's kind of a fun way to see where everybody went and where they made their mistakes or their gains. And then Lily wanted to talk a little bit about social media. Go ahead.
Go up there?
You don't have
No,
to.
okay. Hi, yes, so social media / website updates. The first note is for the skippers who have not emailed in a bio yet. It would be nice to get a bio and get photos of the boat and of the crew. Over the last few years, we have definitely seen a trend that people love to watch the race when the race is actually happening, not only on the yellow brick trackers, but actually following up on social media, asking us questions, things like that. So the more engagement we get, the more we can utilize social media to actually grow the race and get the name out there. It is happening a little bit more every year, but what we really need is everybody's help in this. We're not on the boats, we're not posting anything, but I see you guys posting, you're just not tagging us in it. I cannot reshare anything, I cannot utilize any of the information unless it has been directly sent to our social media or to our email, or we have been officially tagged in it that we can reshare it. So what I'm asking for is help from the crews that do have it and do follow us to just share and tag. You guys all know how it works. I see everybody doing it. And if you need help, please do ask. I'm more than happy to help and show you guys how it works. But I would love to see, just for the race and for everybody here, to see a little bit more. Like, people love to watch it, from your families, your friends, people who have participated in the past. And it would be great to see if we can grow this race a little bit more and get more people onto the platform, into the race, sorry. That's all I got. Thank you.
I think I'm going to pull up the an ORC certificate, but I think that's all we had. Is there any other questions or anything else we can cover? Okay, let me go ahead.
So there's a few of us here from Island Sailing.
Oh, yeah. I think you're in the right place. So yeah, I think that's one of the things we pushed for. So if we'll there's folks here that are looking to get on boats. If you're a skipper, hopefully that's something you can have a conversation. Or is there other people here that are looking to crew? So okay. So for folks that I hope the skippers looked around and made a note of that. If but we'll also share that info out to this with the Zoom call and stuff.
Safety to tell people that is enticing to skippers to know that they can count you as part of their 30%.
There's 14 spots left. There was 15. 5 minutes.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah.
Real quick, I just want to say something about the tracking and the process of tracking during the course of the race. It's been mentioned a couple of times. Be aware of the fact that the BTS, vessel tracking system, does track yellow brick. They can see us on the chart, and we've created a thing so that they can look at our tracking map and use it on their system. So that's one of the things simply to be aware of, that if something does happen and when there's a conflict of some sort, you're going to get a wonderful little vacation video from vessel tracking. So just be aware of that. They're watching. That's it.
Cool. Sorry, a certificate didn't jump out at me, which is surprising. But one of the things that's kind of cool here is this is Sailor Services. So within the ORC infrastructure, you can look for other boats, look up boats that are similar to yours by class and type. See how many of your type of boat there are around the world and what they're doing, even with their sails, and type, how they're configured. We'll come up, do a free bowl of soup here and see if that comes up. So yeah, for any boat, you can come see this, what their single rating is, and then There's also speed guides and, ability target speeds that you can get for your boat once you get this done. This is a copy of our 24 cert, and you can see, kind of hard to run across the projector. Folks kind of see that, but yeah, so down in the, sorry, on the next page. There we go. So that's in that table in the lower, so all the stuff on the right is, specific aspects about the boat, propeller type, hull type, boat dimensions, sail areas, sail limits, of the things you're carrying. But the table below is rated speeds at different wind speeds at different points of sail. So basically a polar table for your boat with your actual design tied to it, something that used to pay, professional people that create this for you would cost a lot, comes with your certificate. You can also see there's, it goes on and on about different scoring options and ratings to use based on a custom races have some, but also, there's bands, triple numbers, 5 bands, windward leeward, all sorts of ways for the race committee to pick and say this was the best rating to use for this race for the conditions that were thrown at you. And then additional details about your boat itself, as well as your sail inventory, and everything you're carrying. So for the rating, the biggest, your mainsails obviously, and your rig around the mainsail have to be measured, but for your rating, it's the biggest. It's your biggest head sail and your biggest spinnaker. So you don't necessarily have to have the smaller ones measured. And then you have to have some details of whether you're flying, any other, code zeros or other specialty sails that has to be accounted for. So, yeah. And in the presentation was a link. We'll have links to all the ORC info, but you can see it's pretty cool. Well, we're Eric and I and Denny are trained on all the ORC stuff, but in terms of Rimkus has been looking at that for doing the race management piece. So,
and if you have questions on how to use Regatta Network to score ORC, I can actually help you out with that. We use the 5-band AP now for the river, and it's pretty easy once you actually load the rating in. And it works well.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll call it. You guys are welcome to, enjoy the club for as long as you want to stick around. And thanks for coming. Thanks everyone for joining online.